What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, or I guess last night, we got two more Ice Barrier cards revealed, and we had a promo revealed like a couple days ago. I didn't think the promo was worth talking about by itself. It was an Ice Barrier card. It's a promo in the OCG. So I don't know when we'll get it here, but whatever. I'll show it here because we got other Ice Barriers to talk about as well as some reprints shown for the structure deck as well. At least the OCG's version that hopefully might translate to us. So, starting off with the first Ice Barrier card here, we have Crystalline Wall or Crystal Wall or Clear Wall of the Ice Barrier. One of those three, it'll be something like that. It's a continuous spell card. You can only activate it once per turn. First effect reads, when this card is activated, you can target a level 4 lore Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Okay, just a monster reborn, pretty nice. I don't know why this can't be a soft, not even a soft monster. I don't see why this couldn't just be a non-once per turn when fucking Adamanticators have their monster reborn and they're one of the best combo decks we've ever seen. But that's alright, whatever. Also, while you control 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters you control are unaffected by activated effects from an opponent's monster special summoned from the extra deck. So, also gives you a little bit of protection if you can get to your board. Your 3+ Ice Barrier monsters with their own Floodgate-ish effects, you also get protection from extra deck monsters. So, keep in mind if you had an Ice Barrier monster that gives you battle protection, I know some of them do, you'd also be protected from effects as well. So monsters from the extra just do not out you at all in those instances, which is pretty good. A lot of meta decks do rely on monster effects more than spell and trap effects, so that is pretty clean. As far as the first effect goes, I think this is really good. I think this is kind of what I've been looking for as far as Ice Barrier support is. Listen, they have their strategy seems to want to set up Ice Barrier monsters, 2 or 3 of them, to hopefully stun your opponent out, have a couple of different Floodgate-ish effects, and then your opponent just can't activate cards, or at least certain cards, so that their hand just doesn't really play that much, and then you take advantage of them on the next turn. Well, that sounds all great and everything, but the deck's not as good at putting monsters on the field. They got one better starter card that helps them put monsters on the field, but other than that, they kind of struggle. So this card is definitely nice to see as long as you can put one in the grave. It's level 4 or lower, you can just reborn it straight back out, and that's way better to me. That I'm much more about. So I think this is pretty good. It's also an Ice Barrier card, so it is searchable off of the new monster, the level 5 guy who can special himself from hand. If you control an Ice Barrier and your opponent also controls a monster, on summon he searches a spell or trap. So it's searchable off that, which is pretty nice to get you an extender. So yeah, I think this is a really nice card for them. And then next up we have Pulse of Trishula. This is a normal trap card that you can only activate both of its effects once per turn each. Its first effect reads, apply these effects in sequence based on the number of Ice Barrier synchros you control with different names. If you have one synchro, you can banish one card your opponent controls. That's non-targeting, non-destruction, removal. That's very strong. Second effect, banish one card in your opponent's graveyard. Again, not targeting. Very good. And the third effect, banish one random card in your opponent's hand. Again, very good. Hand ripping. Very good. It doesn't even send it to grave. It banishes it, which is even better. So it's not even like you could hit something like, I don't know, a bad example, a PK monster. That still gives them a resource in the grave. Like, just gone. So, obviously, you're not going to be resolving this for the 3 effect all that often. Mainly, I would see it being the first effect, maybe sometimes being the second effect. If you're lucky, but I think it's fine. I think it's good that like even the first effect is like the most worth one. I mean, that's just straight up the best one, honestly. And that's good because with a lot of cards you see like this, a lot of times it's like, oh, the first effect is like meh, but the second effect is the effect where you're like, oh, this card's really worth. Luckily, it's the first one. The only problem is the requirement is having an Ice Barrier synchro. Not just an Ice Barrier monster, it's got to be a synchro. So how efficient is this deck at getting out synchros very consistently? Because if it is very consistent, this card will be a lot more worth. If it's not, this card loses a lot of value. It just does. So we'll see on that. I do like that effect. Very, very strong. Should it resolve? Should you meet the requirements to activate it? But we'll have to see how easy that is. And the second effect reads, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets an ice barrier monster, synchro monster specifically, you control, you can banish this card from your graveyard to negate that effect. Now, that's also just nice. I mean, that's just icing on the cake. After you've used this, or if this card was just destroyed while it was set, you do still get a little extra value out of it, a little extra protection out of it. No targeting on your synchro monster. It's actually pretty good. A lot of decks do struggle to have removal out that doesn't target. So pretty good. That's a nice little effect to throw on the end there. And that's pretty much it for the new cards. I think they're both decent. I think this card is definitely a staple. This card is kind of in the air. Just like I said, it's going to come down to how easily, how consistently this deck, like through a hand trap, at least can put up an ice barrier synchro. If it can, this card's definitely playable because it's so strong. If it can't, this card may not find its own way in the deck. And also it's important to note it's not an ice barrier card. It's Pulse of Trishula, so it's not searchable off of the new monster, which means it's not searchable at all. Maybe other than Trap Trick. If you're playing Trap Trick, that could work. But outside of that, it doesn't. So you got to make your choices here. But I still think it's a decent card. Should it resolve, we'll just have to see where that synergy lies. We also have a couple of reprints confirmed here. Spellbreaker, Dance Princess, Dai Sojo, as well as Dupe and Ronin Toaded. That's actually kind of cool because this isn't all water deck, so that could actually be an interesting supplementary engine. The Frog Engine, definitely. As well as Salvage, nice, and Vanity's Emptiness. This is interesting. Keep in mind this is the OCG's one, so if we don't have this card, I'm not too worried about it, but if we do, it kind of might hint at Konami giving the TCG back one copy of Vanity's Emptiness. I don't know if people really want that, but it could help slow down formats. It is such a powerful card, it might steer things to a more control format, which you guys know I love. That's my favorite way to play the game. And then we have Delorean. Delorean's getting a errata in this structure deck, which is really nice because he had actually been put on ban list before just because he has infinite loops allowed to him. Before he just wasn't a hard return, now he is. So the idea was you'd have a card that said something like, when it's returned to the hand, it can special itself back onto the field, not once per turn, and then this guy could just bounce that card infinitely to literally buff his attack to infinity. And then you could kill your opponent with one attack. Or use a burn card that says like, tribute a monster and burn your opponent for its attack points or something like that. You know what I mean? Do something crazy. So can't do that anymore, which is really good, which probably means this card isn't even playable anymore in the deck, to be honest, but whatever. Still cool nonetheless. And then the other new card is this guy. I didn't show him before, so we might as well talk about him now. This is Attendant of the Ice Barriers. Cool design. Really like his design. It's a level 2 Water Warrior, so Roto-Bull, with a 500 attack, 300 defense. You can only use the first and second effects once per turn. You contribute this card to special summon a level 5 or higher Ice Barrier monster from your hand. Okay. I mean, to be honest, one thing I have seen out of this new Ice Barrier support is this deck really does not have great ways to put the higher level Ice Barrier main deck monsters on the field. So that actually does do something. The second effect reads, if this card is in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can target a level 3 or higher water monster that you control, have that monster lose 2 levels, and if you do, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So later on in the duel, it does represent an extender. I don't think he's terrible. I remember him being worse than he actually is. So he's an extender after the turn he's sent, and the turn you do have access to him, he does help you get one of the bigger boss monsters onto the field, which is fine because I think something like General Raiho, right? I think that's his name. General Raiho is one of the better cards because he says something like your opponent only gets 1 monster effect during the whole turn or something. Oh, no. They have to discard a card from their hand every time they activate a monster effect. So they activate 1, 2 monster effects, they're already down, 4 cards out of the hand. So it's kind of a cool card and a big body. So there are certain things. He's definitely an interesting card as well. And then one last thing I want to make note of is a couple of extra reprints here. Keep in mind, again, this is the OCG version, but a lot of cards will transfer over to the TCG. It just depends if exactly all the same cards transfer. A Pointer is a big card, though, because in the TCG, we've only had 1 printing of this card. It was like a common that's really old, so it was like hard to get a hold of, but it's actually been a really good side deck card over the last couple of years, especially like combo decks, or not even combo decks, but it's more like decks that are scared of like Haymaker, host side cards, like Lightning Storm, like evenly match. If you play like a back row deck that you know loses to Evenly or Lightning Storm, you flip this on their standby phase, guarantee those cards get ripped out of the hand, and then you can have a sigh of relief, and you get to look at their hand and know what kind of plays they're going to attempt to make to play into your board, so you can allocate your disruptions accordingly. So just a lot going on there. It's a really good card. It's only in one printing, so it's really nice to see here. I figured we'd see a reprint of this sooner rather than later. It's nice to see here. Hopefully it sticks for the TCG at the end of the day. But that's going to do it for us here, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of these 3 new cards as far as the spell. I think the spell is guaranteed going to be played in the deck. The trap, we're going to have to see how much the deck wants to / can synchro. And then we have the this guy. He could be an extender, sort of. He's an interesting card. Let me know your thoughts down below on what you think on these new cards, and how good you think they're going to be, how playable they're going to be in the deck, and if there's any interactions I specifically missed while going over the cards. So throw that down in the comment section down below. I'm going to leave it there, though. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from me in the future, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.